session.
What in?
Let's see, get back on our agenda here. Now we have the public hearings. Cal's up here, we're gonna make a presentation.
Good evening, Chairman, fellow members of the board. Here before you tonight is a request to rezone one tract, approximately 80 acres, from the RA zoning district to RP. As you'll recall, this request, similar request was before you last month, requesting for the future land use classification to be changed to suburban growth. That land use classification has been changed, which does support the rezoning before you this evening. The RP zoning district allows for a variety of residential uses as well as very limited non-residential uses. The tract is located along Island Creek Road, which is directly adjacent to the New Hanover County boundary. If there's any specific questions for staff, I'll be more than happy to entertain them.
What, in doing this with, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask you a question. By going from rural agriculture to RP, residential performance, what does that allow for the owner of that piece of property to do?
The RP zoning district is the county's main residential zoning district. So what the RP allows for is, first and foremost, a minimum lot size of 1 acre in the RA. Which is reduced to 15,000 square feet in the RP.
So you put up to 3 houses to a lot, more or less?
That's correct.
30-acre lots.
That's also very dependent on the quality of property as well as septic and well.
And everything else, I realize.
That's correct. There is an adjacent, it's not adjacent, but there's an existing Pender County water line that services the neighborhood directly adjacent to this property, which is here off of Hunter Court. The water line goes to about the center line of Hunter Court, which will be required to be extended at the cost of the developer if and when they move forward in developing the property.
Let me ask you this, does that allow for multifamily use or just individual homes?
Just individual homes. It will allow for duplexes. The minimum lot size for a duplex in this zoning district would be 22,000 square feet. The RA allows duplexes. The minimum lot size for that would be 60,000 square feet.
For what now?
For RA would be minimum lot size for a duplex, but a duplex is allowed by right in each of the zoning districts.
It's just the square footage requirements.
That's correct.
22,000 square foot for the RP?
For a duplex, yes, sir. The only other thing, really the RA could potentially allow for more commercial uses. The RP limits the commercial uses to very limited uses that would be oriented around neighborhoods.
Any more questions?
And the applicant is here if the board has any other questions.
The applicant, they want to make a comment, applicant?
Just to further state that staff did provide a recommendation for the board to approve this request.
Y'all ready? Any more comments? Okay, have a motion?
Close public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Close the hearing, I'm sorry. Okay.
Mr. Williams not here, so I'm close by, so I'd take that and make a motion for.
Give a second.
I'll second.
Okay. All for it. Okay. Unanimous? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parks.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Okay. Now we go to number 18. Can we read that or?
Yes, sir. I can take it from here. The next request on your agenda this evening is a zoning text amendment. Specifically, staff is requesting to add public safety telecommunication towers as a permitted use via special use permit to our table of permitted uses. These differentiate between your typical telecommunication tower in that these would be solely used for public safety purposes. Also within this text amendment allows for a fall zone hardship to be granted by the Board of Commissioners during the special use permit process. What staff has proposed is essentially if the property or the applicant can obtain an easement to satisfy the requirements of the ordinance, that the Board of Commissioners can grant that approval through the special use permit process.
So in other words, you can actually relax the requirements, the setbacks?
That's correct. As the setbacks would typically be taken from the property line, that easement would extend beyond the property line to accommodate that fall zone, and the legal language for the fall zone would then be recorded within the Register of Deeds.
Is that, and if I read this correctly, that's really what this was about, is for setbacks to allow to the commissioners could consider an easement?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, or excuse me, yes, sir, Commissioner.
I'm got mixed emotions about towers, these
Sure.
communication towers, because I like for the fall zones, you know, and I know they sit there and say, you know, these things are designed, they will not fall completely over. Well, yeah, the Titanic wasn't supposed to sink.
Sure.
You know, so, and I've heard all these arguments from folks, but I still like setbacks.
Yeah.
On a tower.
And that's why we did not extend that liberty to your commercial use telecommunication tower. This is specifically for public safety telecommunication towers. So,
So
for
what-
example, would be your Viper tower.
Okay, so how tall are those?
They vary. They can be up to about 300 feet. The one out on Highway 53 is about 300 feet, I believe, 500 feet. Okay.
So it's just strictly for the safety, it is, and I see here for public safety.
Yeah, so what we did to differentiate the separate uses is added a separate use for public safety telecommunication towers as opposed to your telecommunication towers in which all applicants that have
You're
gone
just giving the
through.
latitude to the commissioners.
That's for only public safety, yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Any more comments?
May I ask a question? Does it make a difference who the ownership is with?
No, it'll be for the actual use of that tower.
So the ownership could be a private party, but it could be 100% used by public safety.
That's correct. The land use and zoning can't look at ownership of the tower. So.
I was at a loss, I see the sheriff sitting out there. so
Yeah,
now
I know.
See why you may be a bit concerned about this, but that's what was throwing me. I read it, public safety, but it didn't register.
Sure.
I was thinking about all telecommunication towers.
Yeah.
And I do not want to go down that path with all those telecommunications.
And I will assure you that this does not open up that avenue for your typical cell tower.
You were just doing your job as a commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Day.
We appreciate the questions.
All
Thank
right.
you. I've got one other aspect of the text amendment. Section 315.2 administrative adjustment. This is currently set at a 10% reduction that's is authorized to the administrator, which is myself, to reduce setbacks in cases of hardship. A prime example of this would be if somebody's going out to build a house, the property is staked, somebody comes by, mows the lot, moves the stake, they're off 1.5 feet. The power is granted to the administrator to allow that 10% reduction only in regards to setbacks. What staff is proposing is a little bit more flexibility in allowing up to 20% in that administrative adjustment. I provided a table for a demonstration to show you the exact footage, and I took the RA and RP zoning district. What we would go for, just to take an example, 30-foot setback in the RA for your front yard. Currently,
6 foot difference.
yes, there'd be a 6-foot difference. I can grant up to 3 foot, and I did note in my staff report, since 2010, when we adopted the UDO, I have issued 14 administrative adjustments, I
Another
believe.
example of that would be, I'm wanting to add on to my house, and the guy next door to me had his land surveyed, and it actually moved the line over a little more than either one of us thought it would.
That's-
So it doesn't happen all the time, but it does occasionally
That's
happen.
correct, and these are issued for what I'll call after-the-fact cases. They're not issued, somebody does not come into my office and say, you know, my lot's only X amount of feet deep, you know, will you grant me an administrative adjustment? That's what the Board of Adjustment is here for. These are typically for in-the-field mistakes that come up and.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Yeah, so you
I got
couldn't come to me, I would not grant that to you, with all due respect, but if they came to me and said, well, you know, I don't have enough room, will you grant me an administrative adjustment to allow for this? My response would be no, we can't approve that, that's something that would have to be taken up by the Board of Adjustment. In which they would, vote based off of the hardships, criteria that's been passed down through the state legislature.
Okay.
Okay, any more comments, questions?
I don't have any, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, close the public hearing. All right,
I'll make a motion to approve.
second,
Mr. Brown made it, I'll second.
second. All right, all for it, raise your hand. Unanimous? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the one item that we had discussed in closed session about extending, and I didn't want to do this, especially since we had someone waiting for us, would the board agree to extend the closing on the deadline with RC Creations, RC Creation Holding, whatever their name may be, if it changes again to
Do we need to vote
June
to add it to
30th?
the agenda first?
Well, it doesn't expend any money, which was one of the, but if you want to add it to the agenda, we certainly can.
Okay, I'd like to do that if you don't
Okay.
mind. Mr. Chairman, if
Okay.
you would, I'd like to make a motion to add this item to the agenda that the attorney was just speaking of with Acme, an extension with Acme, for their closing.
Yes, it will not increase any expenditures. All it does is just increase the amount of time it has to get the deal finalized.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to add that item to the agenda.
All right, second.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Tate. All right, all for it? Okay,
Okay,
unanimous?
Now that it's been added to the agenda, I would now make the motion that we grant them the Acme seafood.
Until
the
June
30th
30th of
June-
2014. Yes, sir.
June 30th, 2014 deadline, extension.
Yes, sir.
We have a second.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, all right,
Who seconded? I second.
You did.
I'll second.
all right, all for it, raise your hand. Okay, that's good.
Chair, make a motion, we adjourn the meeting?
Got a motion, we adjourn?
I'll second that.
Okay, all right, raise your hand. To adjourn.